Okay, so intrusion detection and prevention. Let's get into this. So what is intrusion detection and prevention? It is essentially all about hacking detection. So hacking and any kind of malicious activity that may be directed against the network. So you might be thinking, well, hang on, didn't we just cover this already in screen options? Yes, we did. In fact, we did cover a whole bunch of hacking defenses and screen options. So what's this one all about then? Well, essentially, screen options deals with layer 3 and layer 4 activities. So we're looking at the formation of IP packets, we're looking at TCP, sync, and ACK sequences, we're looking at how those layer 3 and layer 4 protocols are working, and looking for anomalies at layer 3 and layer 4. With intrusion detection and prevention, we're actually looking at the layers above that. So we're really looking predominantly at layer 7 with intrusion detection and prevention. And if I was just going to kind of give an example of how this works, it's quite a lot like how a virus or anti-malware program works. In that, when an anti-malware program is protecting you against viruses, what it has, it's got a database, and in that database there are what's called signatures of viruses. So, and what your anti-malware program is doing is it's looking at that database and it's looking at the incoming traffic, and it's saying, and it's asking the question: is there anything in this incoming traffic that looks like any of these signatures? And if it is, of course, it says, well, hang on, that's a virus, and it's going to stop it. Okay, so the virus, of course, is at layer 7. It's an application. So it's comparing the construct of that application against a signature database. And really, intrusion detection and prevention, or IDP as we usually call it, works in exactly the same way. We have got a signature database, which is often called an attack database. And what that has, it has got signatures of attack, signatures of what an incoming attack might look like, the sequence that it might look like, and what happens is we configure this up on our gateways, and our gateways are compared incoming traffic against the signature database. So very, very similar concept to antivirus, except we're not protecting against viruses, we're protecting against attacks, hacking attacks. So let's get into this and take a look at how this works. We're going to describe the purposes of IDP. We're going to utilize and update our signature database. We're going to utilize and configure IDP policy using a template, and we're going to monitor the operation of IDP. So let's get into it. So it is a method for selectively enforcing various attack detection and prevention techniques on network traffic. So it works in tandem with other security services. So you would typically run IDP on a firewall. Your firewall would of course have security policies already in place. It would probably be running some kind of layer 3 and layer 4 protection, like screen options that we looked at earlier. You're probably running VPNs between your sites. You're probably putting encryption and so on those links to protect those links. But we're also interested in other types of attacks that may not be picked up by those other things. So it is really part of the overall layered approach, where the things we've looked at so far with our defences really only go up as far as the transport layer, whereas with IDP it goes all the way up to layer 7. So we're able to pick things up that we weren't able to pick up previously. And with the with our Juniper device, we have that integrated right into the operating system itself, so we don't need to install a separate piece of gear to provide us with IDP. So, what are the protection mechanisms? Well, we have this thing called an attack database, which really is the signature database. It is updated constantly. It's located up on Juniper Network's site. It's constantly updated with the latest threats, the latest known vulnerabilities of operating systems. There is a whole range of operating systems that are covered, including Windows and other operating systems that are covered by the threat or the attack database. There are hundreds and hundreds of different vulnerabilities that are covered in that database. So, just like you update an antivirus database, download the latest version of your database, it works in exactly the same way in that periodically you'll download the latest version of the attack database. It is a licensed feature. So what does that mean? That means that if you want it, you've got to pay extra for it. You've got to buy the IDP license, and you install that license onto your SRX device. It includes customizable policy templates. So we have, we're going to look at these templates. They're quite extensive. In fact, when you look at your configuration, most of it, probably 90% of it, is made up of these policy templates, and we actually go and take a look at it. So these policy templates have default actions that are taken when a particular threat is detected, but you can customize it, you can change that. So what are some of the things that you can be protected against? Microsoft vulnerabilities, so Microsoft operating system vulnerabilities. As soon as a vulnerability is known, the signature for it is uploaded or updated into the signature database so that the networks behind your firewall are protected from those kinds of attacks. Now, of course, Microsoft will put out updates which should mitigate those vulnerabilities, so over time they will be taken care of anyway. But the main point is, even before that happens, you've got your gateway protecting you against those kinds of attacks. Proactive network defense, so you don't have to react to an attack. You don't have to go and find that, or looking into some of your logs, some of your server logs and so on, to find that there's an attack been going on. These databases are updated. They can be automatically downloaded onto your system at predefined intervals, so you've regularly got an updated version of the database, and when that type of attack is being launched, it can be detected at the gateway. Signature-based protection for known attacks, and protocol anomaly protection for unknown attacks. So a little bit like we saw in screen options, where we said, well, if this sequence of things is detected, that's unusual because normal traffic doesn't behave like that. And so if we take the same approach with our IDP, we look at what is normal, and if we detect something that is not part of what normal traffic should do, then we can say, well, that could be an attack. That's likely to be an attack. So let's get into looking at the components of IDP. We start off with an IDP policy. Policies contain things called rule bases, which is a whole collection of rules and the rule bases have matching criteria and they have actions. There are numerous policies that are available. So you download these policy templates that provide you with lots of different policies that you can choose from to protect your system, depending on really the type of network that you're protecting. So you choose a policy and you activate one of those policies. Those policies contain a whole bunch of rule bases that look out for the kind of activities that would represent an attack. So the IDP configuration objects build these rules. Might contain further subtypes specific to the object type. They would include zones, so you will say from a zone to a zone, network and address objects, from a source, from a destination, application objects from an application, and there will be an attack or attack group object would be specified within the rule. So we're going to have a look at an example of that here. So we have got a rule, this is called rule 2. There would be many rules in a rule base. As we're saying, from a zone any, from a source address any, to zone any, destination address any. That is the default configuration of these. There is no reason to change it really. You could just leave those as they are because that will match anything. Application is default. So the default application is based on the configured attack. So that is something which is built into the attack database. And the attacks, predefined attack group, this is a ICMP, and that is a major attack. So they have different levels of attacks. Then there's an action. In this case, the action is recommended. So what does that mean? Action recommended. Have a look at that. But essentially, the database itself, the signature database or the attack database, contains information about different types of attacks. It contains the signature for what that attack looks like, but then it also contains a recommended action that should be taken in the event that that type of attack is going on. So when you specify the action as recommended, what happens is the action that is recommended within the attack database is taken. Now you can change that to something else, to a user-defined action, but there is already a recommended action in the database itself. So even if you didn't change anything, you could simply go ahead and implement one of these predefined rule bases, which would have all the actions already, all the recommended actions built into it. So you don't really have to go changing anything, but you can if you want to. So here are the actions here. So the actions recommended. You can change these actions. Now, there was already a recommended action built into the database. It usually is one of these things here. So you can do nothing. You can actually drop the connection altogether. So that particular session is dropped. You can close a client, close a server, close client and server. Or you can do some less severe things like maybe just drop the packet, for example. You can mark the diff serve bit. In other words, you can drop the priority of that traffic, for example. Various things you can do, and of course we can log the attacks in the syslog file. Okay, additional actions. We can notify, block the session, close the sessions. So if we find that there is a particular attack coming from a source address to a destination address which matches a particular application, then we can set the system up to block all further sessions from that address that match that particular criteria. So that can be a permanent block, or it can be a block which has a timeout on it, and that blocks it for a period of time. We have these are the attack severities, so beginning with the lowest info and going to the highest critical. And we can override the defaults as well. Okay, so this is us setting a policy. Our policy in this case is called, well, in this case our policy is called test. So what we're actually doing here, to invoke the IDP functionality on the device, the way you do that is you go into one of your into the security policy that represents the flow of traffic that you're interested in protecting. So typically you would say, I have maybe an internet zone, or whatever you call your untrust zone, your internet zone, or your external zone, and you've got another zone which may be your internal zone, where your network is. So you might have a policy, we will have a policy, that controls traffic flow from your Ethernet zone, your external zone, into your internal zone. You will have a policy already in place that controls that. If you wanted to then apply IDP to the traffic that is coming in, which is kind of a sensible place to put IDP on that traffic, you would go to that policy, and then after your permit statement, which would be right down the bottom of your policy, you would then put the terms application services IDP. Now, by putting application services IDP after the term permit, what you are doing is you are invoking the IDP functionality to go live on that device. What that means is that traffic that is being permitted by that policy will now be evaluated by the IDP process on that device. Now, you also have to choose which policy. Remember, there's a whole bunch of policies that are predefined and download onto your device. I'll give you an example of some of these soon. I'll take a look at it. We're going to choose which policy is we're going to make our active policy. And our policy contains a rule set. And rule sets contain all these rules that relate back to our signature database. Okay, so the effect of that is that the traffic that matches the policy that we have applied it to, and the traffic that is permitted by that particular policy, is going to now be evaluated by the IDP process. Okay, so when the traffic is evaluated by that process, the evaluation is performed on the first packet of a session, and the set of objects used for the detection caches in the session. Evaluation rules occur in order. So here's the thing about IDP that is a little bit, well, this is quite different from a security policy. With a security policy, as soon as traffic matches any particular term in the security policy, the action is taken and no further evaluation occurs. However, with IDP, the traffic that's coming through may match a number of different things. There may be different levels of severity that the traffic matches. So it may match something which is a low severity, which may be just a warning. It may match something that has a much higher severity, like a critical. What happens is each of the terms is evaluated. Even when a match is found, even the subsequent terms are evaluated to see if there's anything else that traffic matches. And then once the evaluation is completed, the most severe action is taken. Okay, so it may match a number of different things, but the most severe action is taken for that traffic. Okay, if you have a rule set where the action is set as terminal, that means that you can prevent any further evaluation from taking place. Generally, you don't want to do that. You do want all of the possible matches to be evaluated with IDP. I'll give you an example. When we have a look at this, it'll kind of make more sense because you'll see there's lots and lots and lots of things that are evaluated within a rule set or rule base. Okay, so we can then create an exempt rule base which skips detection of a set of attacks within certain traffic. So what I'm saying is that there's a couple of things here. If you're getting matches on traffic that are actually false positives, so you know actually the traffic is perfectly fine, but it's getting picked up by IDP and not allowed through, what you can do, you can set up an exempt rule base, which essentially says if traffic is coming from here to there, then that is exempt IDP. So you've got the traffic may match your policy in which you invoked IDP, but there may be traffic within that policy that you want to exempt from IDP. So you can go ahead and create this exempt rule base. It also saves processing on traffic that you may not need to evaluate at all. So we have this rule base exempt that we can create. Okay, let's talk about the signature database. Signature database is maintained by Juniper. It's located on their website. It contains thousands of signatures of different types of attacks. Here's an example here: HTTP, Hotmail, file upload, attack object. So there, within each of these descriptions, there is a whole list of things underneath that which describe what the attack is, which describes the recommended action for that particular type of attack. Contains attack objects, contains updates to the detector engine and predefined policy templates, which we download separately. Take a look at how to do that shortly. So to download the signature database, we must first of all have a license. So you've got to buy a license and install the license onto the device. So the way that we install a license onto the device is request system license add, and then the particular license will be added. It's actually a relatively simple process. The device then goes and queries Juniper's database. The serial number of the device is inspected by the database and the new license is added. So essentially when you buy a license from Juniper, that is recorded in an online database. And you essentially download the license from there. So there's a reference between, or there's a database that lists all the licenses that your particular device has. Okay, you can verify the license installation with the show system license command. You should receive the IDP signature, and you'll see a expiry date as well. Okay, so when you first install, when first setting up IDP, you will need to go and download the signature database onto the device. In subsequent like after you've got it set up, subsequent downloads will be done automatically. You will configure your device to automatically download the database at preset intervals, but initially you're going to have to do that manually, and you're going to have to use the request security IDP security package download full update command, and then that will download that from the Juniper database online. It takes a few minutes to pull it down. Once you've got it downloaded, you'll then need to install it. So the command there is request security IDP security package install, and then that installation process will start running. And you check the status of that as it goes. Of course, once you've got your IDP set up, you're going to want to configure these attack basins to download automatically at different periodic intervals. So this is an example of that. We've got under the security IDP hierarchy, security package, and then automatic start time and interval, and then enable. So in this case, we're downloading a new signature every 24 hours. And verify the database version that we're running, and you can also check the status of the server connection to make sure that you have actually got a connection to the server that contains the signature database, to make sure that you are in fact downloading it. Okay, let's take a look at applying the policy which is called recommended, the most commonly applied policy. So what we want to do is we're going to download these security policy templates. We're then going to download the security package, which is the attack base, the actual signatures. It's called the security package. We're going to install the policy templates, and we're going to install the security package. I'm going to give you a demonstration of this shortly. We'll do that on a live device. We're then going to activate the template script and commit the new configuration. And we're then going to go and set the active policy. So we're going to go and deactivate the commit script. The reason we do that is so that if we go and make custom changes to the templates, those changes will be retained. If you don't delete the commit script, if we don't go and delete the that template under the scripts commit, then every time you run a commit, it will reapply the defaults. We don't want that to happen. And then we go and apply the IDP policy to the required desired security policy. So what we're going to do really is we're going to invoke this IDP function so that all the traffic that is permitted by that policy will then be evaluated by the IDP function and commit the configuration. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to give you an example of this process. So let's just open up a live device, live running device, and let's look at what this looks like. First of all, just get it up and running here on our screen. But first of all, we're going to check our licenses. We're going to look at that first. Make sure we've actually got a license for IDP. Just open up this one here. Bring that over here. Okay. Log in as me. Okay, so we're going to do a show system licenses. We've got a few licenses here. We've got actually some antivirus licenses as well. Quite a few of those, but there's our IDP license that we're interested in right there. So we've got one installed, and it is valid until, well, the end of next year. You beauty. Okay, so there we are. There's our license. All good to go. And we've got a look at the details. Get the details of all of those licenses down there. See exactly what they're all about. Okay, that's good. So let's go back and take a look at what we are doing here. We are going to request security IDP security package download policy templates. There we are. Let's do that. Oops. Back up to where we were before. Okay. There we are. Oops. Request security. Check that again. It'll just be quite a little bit easier if I do it like this one. Security package download policy templates. So we're going to pull down the policy templates here. Now, if I wanted to see how this is going, oops, I should be able to use the status command here. Let's check that. Let's just check here. Oops. Let's find out. I'm going to check the status of this. Here it is. Status. Alright, what's happening here? Oh, we had a problem. Failed. That's not good, is it? That's not good. I think what I might do is go and check the connection to our server. Do the check server. Make sure that's working. That looks okay. So we've got the location of the packages. Got our templates. I might just, the problem may be that I've already got that installed. So let me just let's get rid of our just go and deactivate our templates file. I'm seeing that my issue might be I've already got those templates in there. Well, let's just give that another crack. That and that, downloading. And there it is, it failed. Signature updates TMP. Let's have a quick look at what that error means. Well, what it's saying is it's unable to communicate with the server to download the security package. Let's see if we can ping it. That looks pretty good to me. So it looks like it's communicating with the server quite well. In any case, my guess is the reason I'm getting the error is because I've already done this step. It's already downloaded it. So I'm just going to go right on to the next step, and we're going to go and download the package itself. So let's go ahead and install. Let's go ahead and install the templates. So we're going to go and install those templates there. Let's go and check the status of that. And again, I think the issue is I've already got it installed, so it doesn't want to do it again. Okay, so that's probably my issue there. But if this was the first time, you would expect that would work. Okay, so the process there is we download the templates and then go ahead and install the templates. We then want to set system scripts commit file, and back up to that. Set system scripts commit file templates XSL. Just double check that. It's fine. Let's run a commit. See what it does. Doesn't like that. Could not open the script. No such file or directory. Well, there's an issue. Don't actually have it. Let's go and check my active policy. Set active policy. possible completions. Well, gee. We should have a few options there in actual fact. So we've got a few problems. What we should be seeing is the actual policies that we have downloaded and that are available. So recommended perhaps, or web server, or others that actually there should be a list, actually a list of policies that are popping up at that point. Not seeing them on this device though. So I had a few issues with configuring IDP on this particular device, which we'll need to sort out, and I think that's probably a case of going back and deleting the previous installation and starting again. I think that's probably the way to go with it. Okay, so we set the active policy. So I would normally go set active policy and recommended, but it looks like it's not going to let me do it here, so can't do that. And then we would go and deactivate our file and then apply IDP into a policy. So let's take a look at an example of applying it in a policy. So I'm going to go edit security. Actually, what I want to do is edit under the security stanza. So I want to go we are under edit security. I want to go to where do I want to go? And go to policies. From zone untrust to zone, I'm going to go admin, and let's do a show in there. Okay, so what have we got here? These are the policies here. Come back down to there. So what we're looking for is IDP activated in a policy. And I'm just looking for it, just seeing that it's not actually activated. But what I would need to do is go ahead and put that IDP policy on one of these, or activate that IDP policy in one of these policies here. Let's just go up and look at from zone admin to zone untrust. Let's look at that policy there. So this is it here. Actual fact. So here we have policy admin to untrust match source address any destination any then permit, and I can see that I've got the activation services there of it's deactivated, but application services and IDP is under there. So that's, if that was not inactive, it would in fact be invoking IDP. The fact that IDP doesn't seem to be running too well would be why that has been deactivated there. Okay, alrighty, so bit of a look at how that works. Let's get into looking at how to monitor IDP. So if we were to go and show security policies, policy name, and default permit detail. So we'll get into looking at the fact that intrusion detection and prevention have been enabled in a particular policy. You can monitor the status of IDP. I think we'll show, look at this device, it'll probably show us we don't have a status. This shows security IDP status. Probably fine, we don't have too much of a status going, so IDP default, well, it reckons that it's up. But it doesn't look like it is to me. Okay, just the fact that we've got zeros here. Policy name, none. So there is actually no policy that is invoking IDP on this device. There should be a policy name down here. So it's not really running. And if we were to show counters, we would probably have not a great deal to see there. We can go and look at memory utilization. This is relatively important. IDP is fairly resource intensive as a process, and so you can find that you are consuming a lot of processor and memory resources in running IDP. Interesting to see what this one says. Total IDP data plane memory, 188 meg, easy 14. That's interesting. Well, I think there's some serious issues with IDP on this particular device, which you need probably to sort out, probably to get rid of everything that's already there and start again, I think, with this particular device. Okay. Monitoring with IDP logs, we can go and actually set up these attack logs, take a look at what's happening. We can go and set up trace options under IDP as well. And we can have our flag walls. We can go and check those logs. Okay, so we had a look at IDP. Describe the purpose of IDP, learn to update and use the IDP signature database, utilize and configured IDP policy using a template, and discussed IDP monitoring. Some review questions. How does the Junos operating system process two overlapping IDP rules? Okay, so here's a situation. You've got traffic that matches a couple of different rules. What does the operating system do in that situation? Any ideas? No ideas. So it matches more than one rule. So basically what happens is the rules have different levels of severity, and the operating system takes the most severe action. So whatever is the most severe action on any matching rule, that's the action that is taken. What is the purpose of an exempt rule base? Well, identifies traffic that will not be processed by IDP. When does evaluation of a rule base stop? It stops either when it gets to the end or when it reaches a terminate action. Which two steps are necessary to apply a defined IDP policy? Well, what you really have to do is you install the templates, and then you go ahead and set the policy as active. There are your 2 steps. Okay, so that's IDP. Let me just, what I wanted to show you with this particular device here is, let's go and look at edit config first. And we'll go into edit security IDP. If we just go and take a look at what's under there, what we're going to see is IDP policy. So we've got, this is a policy, it's called server protection. It's got some rule bases associated with it. And if we go and take a look at how these are structured, this is a rule called Web Services Essential, designed to protect your service against common internet attacks. It includes critical and major severities. Is it an essential rule? So the match is from a zone any, source address any, to zone any, destination address any. Application is default, which means the application that is referenced in the attack base. Attacks, predefined attack groups. These are some of the predefined attack groups that are referenced there. Then action. So these predefined attack groups reference the attack database, which we're downloading, or have downloaded. Then the action is recommended. So within the attack database itself, there is a recommended action, and notification is to log the attacks. So that's a rule. Then we get down to the next rule. There's another rule. Okay, and it is similar things there, and that action is similar. Now we're only up to 2% of this, so you can see there's probably a lot of different things that we're going to find in here, which there are. So mail services rule, there's internal services rule, this is activity rule. So this is in this particular policy. So a policy has a rule base which has a collection of rules, essentially. And we're still looking at that same policy and that same rule base. So there's a lot of them. We'll eventually come to another policy. Here it is. Here's another policy. Policy, client and server protection. So this policy is designed to protect both clients and servers. You need to have 2 gig or more of memory to run it on your device. Why is that? Well, just because of the amount of stuff that is included in it. And then we've got rule bases that run after that. So there are a number of policies. Now you only get to set one of these as the active policy. So there are a number of different policies in here. Let's go through. Here's another policy. IDP policy, pulse servers designed to be used to protect a typical DNZ environment. And we've got a bunch of rules associated with this rule base. Okay, so you really do get to choose from a number of different policies, and you get to make one of them as the active policy. Here's another one here called DNS service policy. There's quite a few of them there. Okay, so just an example of the different types of matches, different rules, different policies, etc. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff under the IDP. This is the active policy is in fact set to recommended right there. Security package is going to be automatically updated. The interval is in fact 168 hours, and that is enabled. Okay, so that was the automatic download frequency. Okay, so there we have it. IDP. Looks like a few things to sort out on this particular device with IDP before we can actually get it up and running again. There we have it. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to look at clustering.